Everyone stand back!
Oh my God! Try out! You son of a bitch! You ruined my plans!
Sarah, the sister of the bride, and based on her accent, from origins unknown. I'll take her dead or alive.
Put the weapon down.
Fine, then it's to be hand-to-hand combat then.
Changing the tune, it's Palm Springs, Max Barbakow's film that's come out this year. It's probably the most recent film we've actually done a roundtable of, other than Tenet last week, I think. Starring Andy Samberg, Christine Milioti, and J.K. Simmons, surprisingly. James Robbins, you chose this one. Changing the tone. This is probably the first comedy, I think, has been suggested. What made you want to choose a comedy, first of all?
To have a laugh.
Have a laugh. It's all been pretty serious and somber, hasn't it?
Been
recently?
recommended to me, and I don't know. It intrigued me a little bit because it kind of plays on some time traveling romantic comedy elements, and I'm a big fan of About Time as like a really good. That's like a god tier romantic comedy for me, and so I kind of felt this one would probably. Well, it intrigued me for that reason because I thought potentially it could be as good as that. And yeah, no. The question, I guess, did it make people laugh to that point?
Yeah. I think so, jump in there and say the obviously Andy Samberg. Still remember him all the way back from our days at school with Lonely Island, and that obviously that humour always went down an absolute storm.
Was Lonely Island Productions? Is it at the start?
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I saw it at the start, and then obviously he's gone on to do all the Brooklyn Nine-Nine or whatever.
Grammy winner.
Yeah, very talented guy actually. And she, Christine Milioti, is also funny. She was in How I Met Your Mother for a series or two, and she's sort of done the rounds in the American. What are they called? Sitcoms.
Sitcoms.
So, TV, just not my speciality, to be honest. But no, I laughed a few times. The concept is out there, but not. There are many films we could think of. I'm trying not to mention the really obvious one. And let's see how many minutes it would take before someone mentions it. But on the whole, it was nice to watch comedy. It's nice to sort of relax a bit. And it's you forget when you don't watch a lot of them. The only time I ever really watch comedy films is when I'm really hungover or something like that. Something really easy to watch and just pass the time. And it was actually quite nice just watching one and establishing that it's very low effort watching a film like that because of the ways they're written. And things like that, and it was quite nice to actually not be really deeply invested in 2.5 hour, emotional, psychological film that we've been going over for the last sort of 10 to 15 roundtables. But as an overview to your question, first of all, yeah, I did laugh a few times, and I think I laughed at about the number of times I expected, because you extract a type of comedy from this, and I think it definitely was that. It's very very quick witted.
For a while, I watched the film and I was thinking these jokes are really funny, but I wasn't laughing out loud. Like I could acknowledge that they were like really smart. I was like, that's really funny and that's really well put and really well executed. But I wasn't like barely laughing for quite a while until J.K. Simmons popped on the screen. I thought he was brilliant. I just think he's brilliant. I don't know if it's the lines that he was given or just the way that he delivers them, but like I just think every time he's on the screen, he's such a presence. And he always sticks the landing. So it was, and I didn't actually expect to see him in it either. I thought it was just Samberg and a female with the leads, but that was a nice surprise.
Jem?
I'd echo that exactly. I wasn't belly laughing, but it was funny. It's interesting reviewing a comedy film like this, because obviously it's not our bread and butter at this point, and it's interesting because you can't sort of hold it to the same sort of critical degree that you do to perhaps more serious pieces. So you just take it for what it's worth, and it's quite entertaining. You're not thinking, oh, the cinematography could have been better on that shot, or the type thing, which you might do in a different category of film. But it's a comedy, so did it make you laugh? Yes. It's not the funniest film I've ever seen, but it was entertaining. I think, therefore, it served its purpose. It's interesting what you say about comparing it to other films. I think the obvious one which you're referring to, I've not actually seen.
Really?
But the one I would refer it to is completely different take on it, but the same concept, Edge of Tomorrow. In that you get to repeat your day, obviously they have a very, very, Tom Cruise has a very, very different spin on it.
It's the Groundhog Day premise. Has everyone seen that film?
That's
That's
what
what we're referring to. Yeah.
That's the original.
I mean, there's literally, I was going to count the minutes until someone mentioned Groundhog Day, and I nearly said it myself.
I don't think there's been any take on it similar. Obviously, there's been loads of takes on the idea of that, but I don't think there's been anything of this nature at all.
Yeah, it explores different ways, doesn't it?
And I think it knows that it's perhaps a bit of a saturated idea, and it doesn't. There actually weren't many logic flaws with it. Like all of it actually made sense. You weren't left at any point going, well, that doesn't make sense, or like, it's a silly idea, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I thought that. It was every character reacted fairly logically to this odd situation. Sometimes it's annoying in these films when, like, you're watching the scenario, you're watching the strange, like, set of circumstances happen in the story, and then the characters, you just kind of allow them to make slightly odd decisions to try and move the plot forward. And in this, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense that she would, like, follow him in, even though he told her not to, because she'd be curious. It makes sense that, matey Roy comes back and tries to, like, nail him and has revenge on him for such and such a period in the film before learning that there's not much use to it or whatever. There was very many decisions the characters made, which I thought, yeah, that's probably the type of thing that I would do given the scenario, and that's kind of well appreciated in films like these because I think they often take liberties. So, rated it.
Would you agree that it's that sort of that American humour, isn't it? That SNL kind of humour that we as Brits maybe watch and we don't we don't crack ribs over laughing so hard over it, but you acknowledge that, oh, that's a funny joke kind of thing. It's that kind of humour, and just lots of it in different scenes. Every other sentence has a quick-witted joke that you go, huh, yeah, like that. Yeah, it makes you smile a bit, but you're not there like, that was funny. But it's just, that's the type of humour that it is. I mean, Gub's run off now. He's the Groundhog Day point is that's his only point, so he's gone. Gub, what did you think?
I loved it. Honestly, I was watching it, I was like, this is the best film we've watched in weeks. Really, really enjoyed it. I think, yeah, like you said, because we've watched so many intense movies, I kind of went into it thinking, oh God, where are we going with the time travel element here? But yeah, it was just really lighthearted. I thought all the dialogue was really great. I really loved the casting. Yeah, she is in How I Met Your Mother. That's where I spent the whole movie being like, oh my God, I know where your eyes are from. I've seen you before. I thought she was brilliant. Yeah, I just thought it was really fun. Zero complaints about it. I enjoyed the length of it, the pace of it all. And yeah, it wasn't a belly laugh film for me, but then I find that I rarely kind of laugh out loud when I'm on my own watching movies. I think if we were all watching it together, we probably would have been a lot more laugh out loud moments, because we do tend to do that. But like the whole way through, there wasn't a lull for me where I thought, this is dragging a bit now. I enjoyed the whole kind of attitude towards it. I enjoyed Andy Samberg's laid-back character. And yeah, I always like these films set in that kind of Arizona, LA. Like all the lighting and all the colours are just really appealing. So it's quite like a nice film, kind of just kick back and look at.
I mean, that all plays into the hands of the budget. There being $5 million budget, you can go out into those sort of just outside of LA and film pretty much a full-length feature film just in about 3 different locations.
I was going to say, you only need 2 or 3 sets.
But it was all it needed. It fitted with the story. The screenplay, I thought, was actually fairly well written. It was fairly well rounded. Like you said, Jem, plot holes and stuff like that. There's not a huge amount of flaws in the story itself. It's very basic as a story. I can imagine it's a screenplay that if you locked yourself into a hotel room for 2 or 3 days, you probably could come up with it. But regardless, I think it's one of those ones that if it's written the right way, you've got the big personalities. They're big. The characters or the actors, they're massive personalities themselves anyway. You can imagine they're always great fun to be around, regardless, in real life. And if they bring that onto the screen, then it's absolutely fine. An hour and a half's film, whatever, can just fly by, much like this one did. I don't know. Anyone got any other points that they want to pick out on?
Did it go straight to like on demand, or was it in cinemas at all?
It was.
I didn't see any advertising for it at all.
It was released in July. James, do you know if it was in any small screens abroad?
I think it was. I think it had a small-ish release.
It's
I know
peak
it made
time.
the most money at Sundance ever. I think it made the most money ever
Really?
at Sundance, yeah.
I'd have paid to see that in the cinema for sure. I'd been happy to pay the ticket for it.
I think that's the sort of film that if you were to watch it in the cinema, you'd be laughing like out loud a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
with
such an
everyone.
easy film to watch. I think that's the point we're saying. It was actually quite nice, a little bit of light relief to be able to watch something like this. And I think compared to what you said, Jem, that you feel like you have to grade it and you can't grade it in the same way. I feel like you can probably view this in the same. You can still be critical of a film like this. You just need to understand that you are watching a comedy and it's viewed.
That's precisely what I mean. Yeah,
different ways. And actually, I think for me, for doing this review, it's actually really quite tricky because with other films, like when you're talking about things, you can talk about the more of the narrative in more detail and actually pull out more of a long review. Whereas with this, I'm kind of like the main thing about the story that was great was all the jokes and stuff. And I don't want to, if you start going on saying what all the jokes are, you kind of ruin the film as part of it.
It's not like they butchered all the punchlines or.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I do think that there was some fantastic acting in it though. Like I think maybe you, Tom, you mentioned this, but Andy Samberg played this kind of I lead a life with zero consequences, like there's zero stakes to my life, you kind of laid back kind of guy perfectly well. I think he was just perfectly cast for that kind of role. And also the female lead as well, I thought she was brilliant. And there were some really nice bits, especially in the in like the quick cut montages of when they're going through like a series of days and just fucking around. I thought all of them were done so well, and there were just like funny moments. And I'm going to say one, just like when they're driving, and he's just like she's like hanging out the windscreen. He just slams on the brakes and watches her come flying out the top of the car and is just chuckling to himself driving along. Just stupid shit like that proper made me crack up because I can kind of imagine myself doing some dumb shit like that if I knew I was living the same life as him, which I thought was quite funny.
Did any of you consider it, what it would be like if you were in their shoes?
Yeah.
You would end up like falling in love with them. That's why I normally with these comedies they kind of crowbar in like an emotional element just to kind of like break up the monotony of it being too light-hearted. Like whenever there's they have to like, it's like they're crowbarring in a storyline and random jokes almost. Whereas this whole storyline, I was like, yeah, that probably would happen if you were in that situation. So like the more films we review and the more films we watch, realise how important like the casting is. Like everyone in these roles, I was like, oh, you're absolutely perfect. Like J.K. Simmons, the like revengeful man, I was like, oh, brilliant. Samberg was like perfect, playing like an almost like El Dude kind of laid back, chilled character, just likes a beer. Yeah, I've realised how much of a big factor that is, because sometimes when you watch these films and you're like, you don't fit the role, but everything else is perfect. Like I think with such a simple film like this, it has to be really, really well casted, and this one definitely was.
I think you're right about Andy Samberg being perfect. I wonder how much of a script he was given and how much of a improv this, improv that, because he's just known for like Brooklyn Nine-Nine for just improving entire scenes and just making the entire room just burst out laughing. And you could tell with a lot of scenes that he was maybe not with a direct script, and it was more of a loose guideline as to what he needs to get out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he just seems like the kind of guy that would just make an entire room laugh immediately, just without any sort of need to.
It definitely feels like the script like had him in mind. Like I feel like that role was made for him. I also don't know if there's that many other. I can't think of many other like nonchalant nihilists in other films. So I figure that only he could really play that role. I don't know if he plays that kind of role in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but what I've seen of him, he manages to pull off that kind of a character pretty well.
I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking like, what other actor could step in and do what Andy Samberg did? I thought Chris Pratt perhaps, but certainly not many.